All right, let's welcome in our guest to episode 6, Sue Bird. Sue, thanks for coming on the pod for the second time in like 4 months. This is amazing.
Thanks for having me. Got a lot to report, so.
Yeah, apparently this is not the only time you're going to be coming on the podcast over the next couple months. We're going to have you as our Wubble correspondent, our WNBA Bubble correspondent. So thanks for volunteering about 30 seconds ago to doing that.
No problem.
The deal's done. You're locked in.
Describe, I am curious about your own bubble, because we've talked a ton about what the NBA bubble is like day to day. I saw you had described your bubble as part summer camp, part Olympic Village, part playing overseas, and a little bit of college life mixed in. What is your day-to-day existence like, and how safe do you feel?
Oh, super safe. Like, safety, I don't think. Obviously, once you got past I would say the first 2 weeks, when it was a little like, can we hang out with each other? Are we allowed to do that? Once you got past that, I'd venture to say nobody even thinks about the fact that the pandemic is still happening. We're just literally in our own world here, which is a good thing. I kind of joke. I'm like, it's getting pretty boring. I mean, that happened that fast. It got boring fast. But if boring, being bored is our biggest problem, then we're doing all right. But for those that haven't been to IMG campus, it's literally like a college campus just for sports. So it's geared around sports. All the facilities are like top notch. Everything's cool. There's like hotels and villas right on the campus. And that's kind of our existence. It's the hotel, it's the villas, and then we have access to the basketball facilities, which have obviously basketball courts, but then it's got a weight room, a training room, recovery type stuff in there. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a pool at the hotel, and I would say that's the most popular place. That's where you can like kind of have a social life and just kick it.
Did you say villas? You have villas on campus?
Yeah.
How would you describe these villas?
They're apartments. They're like,
okay, right.
They're apartments. There's like a couple of 1-bedrooms, but then there's a couple 2-bedrooms, but those, I want to say the moms got those. Because we were different from you guys. We were actually allowed. So moms got to bring their child and a +1. So the +1 could have been their significant other or just like a caretaker. And then I want to say it was on years of service, maybe like 6 or 7 years of service. You got to bring a +1. So like Megan's here with me. So that was kind of, that was a huge plus because yeah, it's a long time.
That's amazing. I knew the moms could come. I didn't realize if you were a vet, you got a +1.
Yep.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah. Once the playoffs come and then like teams start to leave, more guests can come in.
I feel like part of the reason that I drank so much wine in the bubble, it's been well documented, was because I didn't have that escape with my family. It's like once it was weird. Once like the game started, I felt that that burden and anxiety just like kick in, that performance anxiety, which it really didn't exist for me those first couple weeks. The first couple weeks, like you said, a lot of boredom, and then the safety stuff. Am I okay here?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the hardest part is there's no escape. There's just literally no break. You cannot get away from basketball. So if you're the type of person that thinks about it a lot or that needs that, and actually, I think what I found in this experience is I am that person. I don't think I understood that, like how much I actually get away from it, whether it's just like hanging out with friends, going to a restaurant, whatever. Because without that, you start to realize you literally can't get away. You walk out your door, you're running into opposing coaches. You go to the pool, other teams are hanging out down there. We actually have bikes to like get around the campus. You're riding your bike. It's just you're just constantly passing people and you're like, hi. Just referees. You're constantly bumping into referees. So you literally just can't get away. It's tough. Last night was the first night that we had a chance to, as a team, like kind of just like have some drinks, play some music, go outside, like hang out. And that was the first time where, I don't know, it was like a huge release, I think, for a lot of us.
Are the families and everybody going to the games? I know Megan has been to a bunch of them.
Yeah, they can go to the games.
So there is a little bit of like obviously it's not real fans, but like there is a little bit of like if you're going off, like you were the other night, like there is a cheering section. There's some sort of positive reinforcement.
Yeah, kind of. I know it was the first game, which JJ, I'm sure you can like attest to. Even though there's not going to be fans, it's going to be quiet. When you first run on the court, it is weird. It is like, whoa. Just to not have any noise during free throws. We don't have the crowd noise pumped in. So free throws, it's like dead silence. If there's another game going on, you can hear the music from them or like whatever's happening over there. But otherwise, there's these just moments of dead silence. So it was very quickly in the first game, I kind of realized it was like halftime. And I was like, guys, we have to be like our own hype men. Like we have to cheer a lot because it's almost like when you're playing pickup or like you're at a park playing, if somebody makes a nice move, what kind of gets you going? When someone's like, ooh, when you hear the oohs and ahs, I was like, we have to be that. Like we have to kind of make it feel that way for the other team. Even if it's fake, who cares? Just like get hype over everything so the other team feels like shit.
I try to do that. And I think a lot of teams try to do that early on. Then I think they went a little OD on the crowd noise.
Oh, really?
Oh, to the point where we couldn't hear instructions from the bench. Like the crowd noise was a lot. And then like you would see these amazing plays or somebody would do something amazing on the court and you would expect to hear those oohs and ahs or that, the shit talking from the bench, and you couldn't actually hear a whole lot because of all the crowd noise. I'm going to give you one piece of advice, or one observation I've had since I left the bubble. It's that I wear my mask more than anyone else, because when we were in the bubble, we had to have our mask. So for the last like 7 weeks, if I'm not like inside my house, I have my mask on. My wife keeps asking me like, you're in the car, you can take your mask off. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I rode a bus for 7 weeks. I have to have my mask on. It's bizarre. I'm like, I don't know what the psychological term for this, but now I'm just trained. I'm just trained to wear a mask.
You're Tom Hanks in Castaway.
Exactly.
When he came home, he was still sleeping on the floor.
Yes, exactly.
Do you still take your temperature in the morning?
I do. I swear to God, I do. I actually got a text yesterday. You have not completed your COVID test today. And I'm like, I'm no longer in the bubble.
You don't own me.
I don't have to do this. You guys are off to a great start.
Yeah. Making bubble life a lot better.
Did you guys get a chance to train together before coming down to the bubble, or is this all coming together pretty quickly? Because both you and Bryant are coming off injuries, right?
Yeah, we missed last season.
Yeah.
No, we didn't have a chance. We had to, the way our training worked prior, if you went to your market, you could use the facility, but it was only like you and a coach. So you couldn't do anything with anybody else. Yeah, this is just a product. So this is actually not that different from other years. Our season is so short and we have such a long off season that teams that have like their core together multiple years always have a head start in our league. Always, always, always get off to the best starts. It's like, I'm sure you could like go look it up. I'm sure it's proven. So for us now, it's like, I would say it's our fourth to fifth year of kind of like this core group. So we all know the offenses, we know the terms, we know and it was just about getting like the 3 new players acclimated. So we were kind of off and running. And I mean, I live in reality. We've had, knock on wood, we've had no injuries, nobody opted out, and we're one of the few teams where that happened. Now, are we deep and are we talented? Yeah. But like, it's basically a team that won 2 years ago. We added players and we're all here. Whereas other teams, I mean, some of them got hit hard with both those things. So we're lucky in that way, but definitely off to a good start.
It's interesting that continuity actually means something. Tommy, yeah. I feel like for NBA fans, all fans want is just player turnover. They just want the draft. They want the Woj bombs at the draft and the Woj bombs at the trade deadline and the Woj bombs in free agency. I'll give Shams a shout too.
I think a lot of fans like free agency better than the games themselves. They like July 1st, that window, July 1st or July 4th, more than the playoffs.
This year for us, because our CBA changed, was the first year where we like dramatic player movement, like big names, you know, like franchise type players were moving, and everyone's like, oh, it's amazing. Everyone's talking about the WNBA now. But to your point, like the two people I'm thinking in particular, Skylar Diggins-Smith went to Phoenix, DeWanna Bonner went to Connecticut. And now they're like, now you can tell they're like finding their groove, they're getting comfortable. But in the first couple like weeks or the first couple of games, you could see it's like they're not used to their teammates. They're just trying to get, you know, going. They don't really, you know, do I do this? Do I do that? Is it me? Is it my turn? Is it your turn? You can see it. But that doesn't happen when you have people together for a long time. You just pick it up right where you left off.
That's really interesting. So Kevin Pelton, who writes for ESPN.
Yeah, Kevin, Seattle guy.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is a Seattle guy. He you know, he does all the advanced stuff and the analytics, really thoughtful stuff. And whenever he does his projections for team wins and player performance at the beginning of the year, he factors in player movement. So if a player goes to a new team, then his expected, you know, win share is decreased because of that movement. So there is some, I think, some historical context to this. I don't know. I've been, this is, you know, this was year 14 for me. I feel like I've had a relatively stable career, but I've played for 4 teams in the last, you know, 3 teams in the last 4 years and 5 teams in 14 years. I feel like at this point, if I keep playing, I'm just going to change teams every 2 years.
So wait, I actually want to ask you. So me and D. So like I was saying, CBA changed, and Diana Taurasi actually said that she was like, "Yeah, we're probably just going to have a lot of JJ Redick contracts." And what we meant by that was just like a veteran player who has value, but like maybe like one team's trying to get the championship right now, so they want that player. Or maybe one team's going through a rebuild, so they want that player in the locker room. So it's just going to be these like one-offs. And also the way our structure is, it actually benefits a veteran to maybe sign a 1-year deal because they might be able to get more money. Like if they couldn't get it this year, they might be able to get it, you know, the next year, whatever. So yeah, so we we coined it the JJ Redick contract just because you've been on a couple teams at the end. So the question I have for you is, was that like money motivated? Was it team motivated? Like what was the main?
So I hit free agency the first time when I left the Clippers. I had just turned 33, and I had it in my mind. I wanted a 4-year contract. I was like, that's all I wanted. I wanted stability. I wanted a 4-year contract. I had, other than 2.5 months in Milwaukee, I'd played for 2 teams in 11 years. So I'm like, I just want stability. I didn't want to sign the 1-year deal in Philly. I know it was a lot of money. Like the JJ Redick contract was a bag. But I didn't want to do that because, again, so much of team building in the NBA is bird rights. And so when you sign a 1-year deal, you don't have bird rights the following summer. And so the first time I did it, I was like, all right, Philly I know is going to be a great fit on the court. Let's go for it. The second year when I signed another 1-year deal with Philly, it was to get my early bird rights the next summer because Indiana offered me more money on a 1-year deal. And I told Indiana, I'm not coming unless it's a 2-year deal. I don't want to restart this whole bird rights thing, the whole clock again. Looking back, it all worked out. You know, I did end up signing basically a 4-year deal for a significant, you know, salary. So it's all good. It's all good. I actually like that you guys have coined it that. Other than some of the stuff you've mentioned in regards to player movement, I know you guys increased the salaries, the max salaries. I think there were some benefit increases as well. What were some of the big changes in that new CBA?
So the salary cap increased, but what also changed was, so we always had like an actual max that you can't, both in the cap and it's like a hard max. And there was a player salary max. So the cap went up, but we also increased the player max by like $100,000. So what used to be the max at like 115 or 17,000, we pushed to 215. So it's like a huge jump for your top players. So obviously it changes like the whole format underneath. So that was big. And then some of the stuff off the court, so like 100% maternity leave, which was huge. There's a bunch of different stipends. There's a childcare stipend. So if you already have a kid, it gives you like, I think $5,000 a month to help care for that or for him or her. I'm trying to think. Oh, different like lifestyle things. Like we all got our own room on the road now. So it used to be players 5 or 6 years and up got their own rooms, but now everybody does. So that was huge. We got bumped up, like, so now we used to be like economy. Now it's like economy plus, but then now you can also get bumped up to first class. There used to be like rules about that. That's kind of like the big ones.
I think it's interesting. The NBA, I believe, is celebrating year 75 this upcoming season, something like that. You guys are in year 25, 24,
Yeah, I don't even think
somewhere around there. And it's interesting to hear you talk about some of these things, because these were things that were happening in the NBA like back in like 80s, 90s, you know, and really too, the interest and the money generated coming into the league changed in the 80s. I mean, we've mentioned this before in the podcast, but there were NBA Finals games that were on tape delay in the 1980s. So I feel like the women's game, in terms of just interest and excitement, and obviously the talent has just gotten unbelievable. But it's like it's all going in the right direction. It's just you're literally decades behind from a business standpoint where the NBA was when you guys started.
Yeah, and what I'm learning is like a lot of it is just like optics and how it looks or feels and how people look and feel about it. It's not even always based on reality. That's what's like most interesting. And we do get compared to the NBA a lot, which is it's good and bad. There's definitely some negatives to it, because a lot of people will be like, oh, you don't charter. And it's like, do you know how much it costs? Like, I always want to look at these people. I'm like, you don't charter. Like, what are you talking? Like,
so like you're sitting in row 30.
Yeah, like you're
us.
Hey, why are you looking at me about? But yeah, it's all about. So now that what this new CBA did, because we had all this like good stuff come out of it, particularly with the money, we do have like a different vibe now. It's like, oh, like your top players. So there's also these off-season like pots of money that you can tap into. So like, no joke, there's like 2, 3, 4 players or so that have the ability to earn close to like $500,000. That's like not a joke. They can get to like the $400,000 or $500,000 range if they tap into all this off-season marketing. So when you hear that, right, I feel like people are starting to hear that and they're like, oh, the WNBA, oh, you guys make that? Oh, so now we have this like different vibe around this. But it's not even based in reality. It's just like, again, like the optics of it. It's interesting. Yeah.
Do you feel like the distribution TV-wise is getting better? Because I just anecdotally feel like I'm seeing highlights more. I'm seeing stuff on Twitter more. Like partially it's you because you're Sue and Sue, like you're a star. No, but everyone loves you, so your stuff's getting tweeted whenever you have a good game. It's everywhere. Versus, I don't know that that's the case with every player in the league. But it does feel like that it is starting to sort of like break through a little bit, kind of, just like visually, like if you're at your computer and you're on Twitter for a certain amount of time and something big happens in the league, you're going to see it.
Yeah. I think it kind of started even before this pandemic hit. We had a little bit of momentum. You could like feel it. It was the CBA. We had a really good finals and people were tuning in and talking about it. And I think just being in this bubble, and being one of the few sports that's going on, it's natural right now. What I want to know is this going to continue, to be honest? Like, yeah, a lot of our games got picked up even more than normal on ESPN. We have a ton on CBS Sports. Twitter, we just did we renewed that deal. So there's like 10 or so games coming up on Twitter. But what I want to know is like, is that energy going to be there when other sports are back? That's the question I think all listeners knows. Because right now it's kind of easy. And even still, like I'll put on ESPN, watch some Sports Center, and I'm like, there's no other sports. Why aren't our highlights on here? Like more so. But they, we're still cracking in. We're trying to crack in, trying to get in there, trying to break in.
I wonder in 5 years if Sports Center is still going to be showing Padres Diamondbacks highlights. You know what I mean? I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious.
Is Sports Center going to exist in 5 years?
Well, okay. It's a great question. Everybody's consuming stuff on their phone. I don't know that you're sitting down to watch Sports Center. But I guess my point is there is you guys, and I would say the attention around the league, and we'll get to this in just like literally 1 second, just the attention around the league, I think increased exponentially, 2-3 years ago when you guys started championing social justice movement, and you guys were way ahead of the curve on that, way more than the NBA. But I guess my point is the momentum is there for your league and for the players. There's so many WNBA players that to me are household names in sports now. Whereas a sport like baseball, which has been on the decline for a number of years, like how many great players can you name in baseball right now? I can get to like 5, legitimate. And I'm kind of a baseball fan. I just don't watch it anymore.
Yeah, I'm like Aaron Judge. I don't.
I will say, I mean, take New York for example. I have a feeling, if knock on wood, if her health sort of works out, Sabrina is going to be a huge deal in New York.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
to that point, I think Knicks aside, that's a whole other conversation. Like, I think Sabrina is going to be a bigger deal than like Garrett Cole or like a lot of the guys on the Yankees. I think the Yankees, we're obviously all friends with CC. CC, part of what makes CC different is his personality is different than those guys. He wants to do stuff like this. He wants to kind of like be in different worlds and everything like that. But a lot of baseball players are just fucking boring, and they all they do is they go to the park at 10 a.m. and they sit there for 9 hours and they play and then they go home. And like you guys, we're going to talk about the politics stuff in a second, but like I always say about you, Sue, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the show. Jay and I talk about it, you're literally the coolest person probably in sports, but like outside of just basketball. It's like everything. It's the shoes. It's like how you carry yourself. It's every part of the world that you're in. And I feel like the younger players learn part of that from you. And the more of that they basically take from you, the more they're going to be like seep just into the culture overall.
Yeah, I mean, well, thank you. That's like dope compliment. I think for women's basketball, what happened was like we kind of tried to be like just, I don't even know like who. I guess one part of it is trying to be like a male basketball player or an NBA player. And in that, simultaneously trying to like push early on in the early days, like this feminine kind of like girly situation. And we just all kind of lost sight of just like ourselves and who we are individually, who we are as a league. And I think to your point, we're like finally coming into our own in that way and owning it. And that's, I don't know, when you are who you are, it's not to say everybody's going to like you, but at least they know like what they're getting. You know what I mean? It's like, if they choose not to like you, it's based on something real, not on just like some image you're trying to push. And I think we haven't had like a lot of this, we've missed out on a fan base because of that. And now, again, to your point, it's like, yeah, if you have the older players, and not just older players, any player, if you just kind of are who you are and the younger ones learn from that and see that they can do that as well, it's going to continue to push our league forward in that way.
No, you're absolutely right. You're building a culture within the league, and that culture permeates into the rest of culture at large, and people are attracted to authenticity for sure. And you're definitely in my top 5, just to piggyback on Tommy. You're definitely top 5 coolest people I know in sports. Yeah, no, it's good. By the way, I just want to mention real quick, when I took my notes on this episode, at no point did I write down we are going to bash baseball for 5 minutes. So that was a spontaneous pickup there. I'm sorry that happened. I do like 5 players. I want to talk to you about social justice in the WNBA because, as I mentioned, you guys have been so far ahead of the curve. You have a number of players who opted out to continue to their work on the front lines. Maya Moore took off a whole season, basically retired to advocate, and she got someone out of prison. Like it's amazing the activism that you guys have shown. Who's leading on this? Is this your union? Is this a group of 2 or 3 players? Who's leading on this?
It kind of starts with our union. Not kind of, it does start with our union. I think that's natural for the players in the league to like look to our union to help guide us. And we have 6 of us are in this executive committee, and we kind of definitely coming into this bubble experience, we were on all Zoom calls. We were the ones talking to the league, kind of explaining things to players. And then once that all got figured out, just the basketball part of it, the other like non-negotiable was the social justice aspect. And then from there, we actually developed like a social justice council. So it's kind of these two groups. It's the EC, 6 of us, and then there's a social justice council, which I think has, I'm not quite sure, like 7 players on it, representing the teams or whatever, or different teams. And they kind of they'll set up Zoom calls. So we've obviously tried to, really not just advocate, but like talk about women, right? Women who have been murdered by police. And so with each week, we've kind of honored a different woman. And so what we'll do is, so obviously Breonna Taylor was the first. And so we actually got on a Zoom call, like with her mother, with her lawyer, her mother's lawyer, and just talked and heard the stories and got to hear a little about Breonna, got to hear how the family was doing. And then, you fast forward the next week, we do it again, and it's kind of this thing that's continuing. So we're kind of educating ourselves as we go, so then we can educate others while we're kind of amplifying it. But a lot of that it comes back to that social justice council, and just kind of putting that all together.
With Kelly Loeffler in particular, was there any, and to just give context to the listener, if they haven't read about this, and correct me, Sue, if I'm wrong in explaining this, but Kelly is running for Senate in Georgia. She's a Republican running for Senate. She's currently a senator right now. She's up for re-election in November. She's a league owner, and you guys have been very outspoken against her to the point where now you have these awesome vote Warnock shirts for Raphael Warnock, who's running against her in the Senate race in Georgia. So not only are you criticizing her, you're literally like propping up her rival. Can you just like explain the whole backstory with her in particular? Because this is certainly unique, even in the age of athlete activism.
Yeah. So, like you said, she's an owner, a co-owner of the Atlanta Dream. And, social justice was, like I said, a non-negotiable. If we were going to have a season, the league was going to have to support us in this. And so similar to the NBA, we have Black Lives Matter on the court. We have it on our shirts. We have Say Her Name on the back of our shooting shirts. And before the season, or before games started, Kelly Loeffler came out and essentially told us to shut up and dribble. Like, that's basically what she said. And she did it in a way, come to find out, like, as you kind of read, so it was a letter sent to our commissioner. And she did it in a way, I mean, it was politically smart, right? Like, if you want to, like, how people, like with Donald Trump even, it's like, at some point, what they're doing is smart. I don't agree with it, but like, you see the strategy of it. So her strategy, she wasn't Donald Sterling. She wasn't this like blatant racist who like said these things. She did it in a way where the league couldn't just force her out. As players, we couldn't just be loud about it. Nothing, and to some degree, it then kind of, we are a league of tolerance, and we do accept different people in our league. So who were we to then be like, no, get her out? It was this weird, it was just this very weird gray area. And then we were like, yeah, but we don't want to be used as pawns either. Because what we quickly realized was she was essentially, by standing up to us, if you will, was showing her base, or the base she wants in Georgia, just what she's all about. And, oh, look at me, I'll stand up to these women. And so we were like, wait a minute, like, now you're using us. And that didn't feel good either. So I don't know, it was just kind of this way in terms of, supporting Reverend Warnock. It was a way to honestly support a candidate that represents all the things that we feel strongly and passionate about. We talked to him on Zoom calls. We got to know him. This wasn't just like some flippant thing. It was like, we really dug deep on it. And, it was also nice to support someone who hopefully can beat her. And that's just the reality of it. So it kind of went hand in hand, and it felt just like super organic. It happened naturally. It fit. And, so if anyone's in Georgia, go ahead and vote for Warnock.
JJ, I have a question for you. Relates to both of you guys, but to this point, to your point, Sue, about it being smart, there's been a calculated effort in both the NBA and the WNBA over the last couple months of elected officials, or elected Republican officials, mostly senators, going after whether it's individual players or going after leagues, and basically like not talking about COVID, not talking about any of the other sort of like structural problems you would think somebody in Washington would care about. They're literally going after athletes in the bubble for a variety of reasons. So I'm kind of curious, like, what both of you guys think about that, even on like a macro level, rather than just like this specific case.
My take on it for us, for women in the WNBA, like one day I just woke up, this kind of hit me. I was like, so all, politicians are trying to say to us is keep politics out of sports. Like, oh, this is where I want to go to just watch a game. And I'm like, I'm not the one that brought it in here. Because as female athletes, all we are judged based on everything except the game we're playing. We're being judged because we're women. We're being judged because, we're gay. We're being judged because we're Black. All of these political things are being brought to us. And that's how we've had to like find our way in this life, in this like WNBA trying to be a business life. We've had to battle that. It's never just been about basketball for us. So then to kind of flip it now and tell us not to be political, quote unquote. By the way, obviously we all know this is like a moral issue. These are like people's lives, the women in our league. This is directly impacting them. This isn't, some trying to get a policy that's going to help someone's pocket or something like that. Like this is direct, their lives are impacted. So anyways, it really kind of hit me one day. I was like, who is anybody right now to tell us as female athletes to just stick to sports? I mean, we've actually tried to do that. Nobody would let us. And so here we are, standing up for ourselves, which is something that's very natural for us at this point. And now now we're the ones bringing the politics in. So that's my take on that. It's ridiculous.
I can't say it any better than that. I would add to that in a very macro level, to Sue's point earlier, it's clearly because it's an election year. I said this when they asked me about Trump's tweet saying, I'm not going to watch the games if players kneel, but everything he does is meant to divide and incite and embolden his base. And him tweeting that is no different. And to Sue's point, it is smart. It is calculated. There is a strategy there to what he's doing. I also would add that politics have always existed in sports. And when you get on the other side of it, meaning the next generation, and you look back at history, it's very easy to see who was on the right side of history. So I'll just give you a few examples. Jesse Owens in Berlin in 1936. Tommy Smith and John Carlos in Mexico City in 1968. Jackie Robinson, Kurt Flood fighting for free agency rights. I could go on and on and on. Politics and sports have always coexisted to some degree, and now it's not different. The other thing I would say, and you guys, the WNBA your players are a great example of this, is who's to say I shouldn't have some say or some voice in politics? Who's to say? Most politicians are not career politicians. They did something else prior to politics. And what your players are doing and what our players are also trying to do is educate ourselves, so that if we do decide to use our voice, that we're doing it in a constructive and truthful way, and not sort of hyperbolizing or gesturing to some virtue signal or something like that. We actually are passionate and want to learn and want to know more about this stuff.
Do you guys feel like this might be a stretch, but do you feel like the stick to sports idea is like dehumanizing in a way? It's literally like, we want you to like entertain us. Like entertain us, do this, but like we don't actually care about what you think about anything. Just shut up and play.
Look, I get in trouble every time I say this from a certain group of people, but I'll say it again. Sue and I are white. Tommy, you're white. But the fact that a lot of professional athletes, especially in the NFL and the NBA and the WNBA, are Black is not lost on me when people say shut up and dribble. It's no different than the feeling people have towards a lot of Black people in this country. And there's always going to be a certain degree of exploitation in sports as long as the majority of the athletes are Black. That's the system that this has been built on. I could be wrong on that, but that's something that I'll stand by.
I don't know. It's like this kind of unveiling that's happened, I think for a lot of people, myself included. I think we've all had moments, and this is definitely one of them, where when you put it that way, you start to see and look at it differently. But I do think there's this whole, just go out there and you're just here to entertain, and it's, I mean, we have opinions, we're people, we vote. Like, why? I don't get why they expect us to check that at the door. I don't understand that at all. Again, back to what I was saying, it's like, especially when we're being treated in such a way where it forces us to educate ourselves and be knowledgeable about things.
So here's something that I get a lot, and I think, for male professional athletes, because it doesn't matter if you're a minimum contract player in the NBA or in the NFL, there's a feeling like America was good to you. Look at you. You're making all this money. You have no right to speak out and protest. I think to a degree that is incredibly dehumanizing. And it doesn't really I'm not talking about white privilege, but to say somehow that because I have a salary that, I'm privileged and I don't understand the common plight. No, I respect the opinion of a plumber. I respect the opinion of a handyman. Like there shouldn't be a difference because someone makes X amount of dollars or somebody makes Y amount of dollars. We can all sort of coexist just on the human level. Sue, I have a question. Do you worry about alienating fans? Like, is that a discussion that you have amongst your teammates or your peers?
Me personally, no. It's never even been. I mean, I understand like the idea of it, and I understand why, just in the world of business, why you wouldn't want to do that, right? Like I've watched enough Shark Tank. I know that the businesses that come through that, I feel like I can hear Mr. Wonderful's voice being like, "Oh, this is just for men. You're cutting out 50% of the population." I have no part of that. I understand these concepts, but it goes back to what I said earlier, which is like, we have to be us. We've tried not to be all these other things, and it doesn't work that way. That's just like not how it works in life. So, it's like, you'd rather fail, I guess, being yourself and being, genuine to that.
Tommy, I want your thoughts on that. As someone sort of outside of the NBA world, obviously you know a lot of people in the NBA world, but as someone who just grew up a sports fan, and what is your?
I'll be honest with you. I think that it has flipped with Trump. I think that you could make a real argument pre-2016, and I obviously would respect and had friends that were sort of doing this either way, but I think you can make a real argument 2016 that, people have their own opinions, and it's sort of like, it's like the thing used to be like, the polite thing to do is not talk about like religion and politics. Like, you just go about your day, you do this, you think what it is. If Sue said in like 2011, like, I support Obama, you shouldn't get shit for that. But at the same point, you're not necessarily like saying like F you to Republicans or anything like that. With Trump, I basically think it has become a moral imperative to speak out against him, but I also think sort of, maybe you could say this is me being cynical, I think it's good business to speak out against him. I think that it is good for entertainment people. I think it's good for athletes. I think that it is a thing. There is such a fervent like distaste for him that you're kind of missing an opportunity to like sit it out. Like, everything is intertwined with Trump now. He spends all of his time in culture war issues, talking about kneeling, talking about Colin, talking about you guys. Like, he has no interest in governing, clearly. And so if he's going to do that, it would be kind of crazy for you to just like turn the other cheek every single day, basically.
Which makes what Colin Kaepernick did in 2016 so remarkable and so courageous, because there was something on the line then. There's a guy that you may follow him too on Twitter, Howard Bryant, who's tweeted this out a bunch of times since sports resumed. But the essence of it is there's no real risk in protesting. There's no risk in us kneeling anymore. Like we're doing it league wide. Now, I would argue for the WNBA to do some of the things that you guys did. Like you guys were kneeling, you guys were walking out, you guys were wearing t-shirts before any of these things were in vogue. Like you guys were doing all this stuff way 2-3 years ago. But there's no real risk right now in terms of being blackballed from the league. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, so that was a major conversation as we got close to playing games. We obviously wanted to have open conversations, and Lasia Clarendon, she's on both the executive committee and the Social Justice Council. She kind of headed this up and went to the league, and it, like I said, tried to have like dialogue about it, see what fit. And I think where we all fell was like the kneeling felt performative at this point. And it was kind of like, what is it really accomplishing? It's not really a protest anymore, for all the reasons you just said. And that's where we all decided, at least for that first weekend, every team was just going to exit the court before the national anthem was played. So we just weren't out there for it. We tried to get it, we even talked, and I shouldn't say tried, but we talked about, should they even play the national anthem? Like, who is this for? There's no fans. Like, who is this actually for? We don't want it. Now we're at a point where teams can choose what they want to do. So like Seattle, we're continuing to just exit the court. Some teams stay on, and some have locked arms, some have knelt. But yeah, so that's like the exact conversation. It just feels very performative at this point. And is it a protest anymore?
Why do we have to listen to the national anthem? Why do we have to do that before a sporting event?
Isn't it?
I actually know when it started.
It's a fairly new thing, right?
Yeah. Well, no. So I because Trump keeps saying the wrong year on when the Spanish flu was, I get really confused about this World Series. But it was either 1917 or 1918. The Cubs were playing the Red Sox. I think Babe Ruth was still on the Red Sox at the time. Right before Game 1, they announced that they were going to start drafting baseball players to go serve in World War I. And so Game 1, there's this somber tone throughout the game. The fans are kind of gloomy. The players are gloomy. And in the seventh inning, I think, they played, the Star Spangled Banner. And people stood up, and then a third baseman gave the military salute to the flag. People started cheering. And then they did it for the rest of the series. So this was like off and on now for like 15, 16 years. But it wasn't like every sporting event till much later, like the 1940s, 1950s. But I don't know if it's like mandated that it has, like we have to play. Is this a national law?
I don't know. Well, what's interesting is when I played overseas in Russia, they played their national anthem before every game too. So it's like, I don't know. It's every country just thinks it's I don't know how that even, I wonder how it started there, like who started it over there. It's bizarre.
This is a little bit of a switch. And I would recommend, we could do literally 5 hours just on your Russia experience, which is like the craziest shit in the world. But have you talked to, talked to your friends you made over there about like what they think is going on in the US right now?
Not really. Not the Russian ones.
Yeah. I'm like, it's just.
I do have one teammate. We actually went to college together. So, it's like, I think a lot of people are just like, you guys are crazy right now. It's more like that vibe. They're just like, what's going on? But I think for the players, a lot of us go overseas, and now like our passports used to be gold. It was like the best passport. I mean, we all know, but when you're traveling overseas, it was always just so nice. You don't have to worry about the visas, whereas like in Russia, when you're Russian and we had to go play wherever, Spain, Italy, they're always scrambling to get visas and having to like do all this, go to the embassy. It's like, we're like, we're American, we're good. Hey guys. And everyone welcomes you in. And now it's just, I've talked about that part with some of my, like, they're like, yeah, we don't want to go. We don't want to come to America. And we're like, wow, well, we're not allowed in anyway. We're to Latvia. We're not allowed. So it's good. So it's bizarre in that way to have your passport be no goes anymore.
I just want to say before I ask you this next question, I just want to say that I genuinely love America. I was born here. I was raised here. I'm going to raise my kids here. I love America. I'm not shitting on this country as the worst place in the world. I don't want to leave. I want our country to be better. I think that's what we're all sort of advocating for. And specifically, we want Black people in this country to have a fair shot in everything, to have a fair shot in everything. And they've never had that. And I don't, and to your point earlier, Sue, that isn't a political issue to me. That's not a right or left thing. It's a human thing. It's a right and wrong thing. And morally, we have to be better. There was a recent E60 feature on you on ESPN. And you talked a little bit about how when you first got to UConn, you were very shy. You were very quiet. You were a lead by example type. And you've had this incredible transformation over the last, call it 20 years, into one of the most well-respected people in sports, one of the best leaders in sports. As Tommy said, one of the coolest people in sports. What brought this out of you? Was it maturity? Was it experience? Was it Megan? What brought it out of you?
I think like all of the above. It's not one thing. I think I was shy. I am like more reserved in that way, or I was growing up. Still have a little bit of it, of course. So it was part of it was like just getting comfortable in my own skin. You know, some of it has to do with my sexuality, but it's not even, I don't know. Like Megan and I have actually talked, she's over there, I keep pointing. Megan and I actually talked about this. Like being gay is like, it's obviously a part of who I am because it's like who I love and who I date. But like, I don't know if I had to rank like things in within me that are me, that's not necessarily number one. Whereas for Megan, it's like it's like number one, you know? So that kind of falls, but there was like aspects of it where if you're not comfortable with it, if you're not out, it does kind of like hinder you. You're holding back in these ways. So there was that, just getting comfortable with myself. And that actually happened before I publicly came out. That was kind of just the cherry on top. I'd already been, you know, open with like everyone in my life, my friends, my family, my team. I never was hiding anything. I just hadn't said it publicly. So that was kind of that early journey. And I think Megan was the one that really like blew the door open in a lot of ways. Just honestly, it wasn't like just by watching how she lived her life. It wasn't like a conversation or her like trying to help me. It was just by like just literally being in the same household and seeing how somebody else lived in that way, and just kind of seeing how like she seemed so free, and it felt, you know, like I felt freer when I would kind of you know, try it out, I guess. So it was just kind of a journey with that. But I think some of it was also just age and maturity, feeling more confident like in myself and my voice to be able to lend it.
I said this to you both when we had you on the podcast a few months ago, but the remarkable thing about that and what you just said, watching Megan and sort of observing Megan, you know, there are people all over this country right now watching what you do and watching Megan and watching what y'all are doing in the bubble, and you are being examples to them. And just by doing what you're doing, you're being an inspiration to them. And that notion of sort of paying it forward just by doing the right thing is actually pretty incredible. That to me is one of the most American things we can do. Tommy, did you know that Sue has 14 championships, by the way?
I did. Yeah, I looked this up yesterday. I knew you had a lot. I knew you had a lot. I didn't know it was 14 is a fuck ton.
All right. So two college championships, 3 WNBA championships, 4 Olympic gold medals, and 5 EuroLeague championships. That's not even to mention all the championships that Megan has won. Just from a logistical standpoint, what do you guys do with all the trophies? Where do you put those?
Like, I don't even know where they are. I know where the gold medals are. That's about it.
Sue, I think when you get out of the bubble and you guys go home, you should set up, like JJ has his book room and a lot of people have like shoes behind them. You guys should just stack the trophies. I was going to ask you. I wanted to talk about UConn for a second. The year you guys went undefeated, was there like any? Was it clear early on like this team is just going to run over everybody in your path, or was it like, okay, we woke up one day and you had a bunch of kind of like nail biters, but we haven't lost yet, and you kind of just made it through?
It was pretty clear. The only thing that wasn't clear was we actually had the year before was probably our more like one of the most talented UConn teams. I was a junior. Diana was a freshman, and we had 2 All-Americans as seniors. And they were kind of, they were our seniors. And for me, it was like they were the class right above me. So they were always there to like lean on. So they were gone at that point. So that was in like the preseason part, that was kind of like, oh, who's going to fill those shoes? But then once like we got rolling, or once the game started, it was like a distant memory. And I actually don't say that like disrespectfully, but it was like we formed our own identity and we were off. And I think we had one close game that was kind of like, oh shit, at Virginia Tech.
Random.
Like, yeah. And they were in the Big East at the time. So it was like a conference game, but very random. And that one, like, it was one of those games where like we just couldn't, like they just were hitting and we just like couldn't get over the hump. Finally did. Then the ref called like a crazy technical. It was just like one of those games. And then it came down to the end. We ended up winning by like 2 or 4 or something. So we pulled it off. But that was the only one that was like, ugh. Everything else, we like rolled over people.
Taking talent out of the equation for a second, because obviously, a couple of your teams at UConn were just way more talented, and you guys had an incredible margin of error that you could get by with and you'd still win games. But you've been around winning championships enough. I've been in the playoffs a bunch, and I was on good teams at Duke, and I was on good teams in high school and good AAU teams. I've won a little bit in high school and AAU national championship and a state championship, but not on the college or the NBA level. What's the separating factor between a winning team, a championship team, and just a good team? Besides talent, obviously.
Right. I think the winning teams, they find ways to win even when they're playing like shit. So it's like when they're not hitting their shots or the other team's playing amazing, they still find a way. They're not like bogged down by that. Things don't have to go perfectly for them to still win the game. They can win ugly, they can win pretty, they can win all the ways. I think that if I had to like pick one, I think that's something. And it hasn't always looked the same.
Yeah.
On the teams. Some of the teams that, like, if we use WNBA because it's most recent, like 2018, we were like an offensive minded team. So it was always that's how we were free flowing offensive. And then 2010 when we won, we were like a gritty defensive team. So it doesn't matter the style of play, but I think that ability is like to find a way to win even when you're playing poorly. I feel like that's when you can win the whole thing.
I wonder how you get to that point though, because obviously we can say, all right, well, chemistry matters, or a team's mental makeup matters. Are they mentally tough? But I don't think it's a coincidence that you've won as much as you had, because I think that some of it is almost like corporate knowledge passed down. And you look at the Raptors this year, and I know I bring them up on the podcast all the time, but what they've done this year is so impressive. They lose a top 3 player. There's no one that stepped in to take his usage or volume or anything like that. There's no one that can replicate his skill set. And yet here we are. They're the 2 seed in the East. There are a lot of people's dark horse favorites to make the finals in the East. And some of it just in watching them this year was, oh no, we just know how to win. There's something that comes from the learned experience of winning at that high a level.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the same goes for teams that lose historically. They can't break the cycle, and they don't expect to lose. It's not that they just get so used to the feeling and they don't know how to break out of it. And so, like they don't know how to close the game. I mean, you hear that all the time, like, oh, this team, they're good, they're this or that. They just don't know how to close games yet. They just don't. And I've even heard it in the Wubble a little bit. There's been some teams like, yeah, we haven't learned how to close the game yet. We can put 35 minutes. We just, those last 5, we lose it or something like that. So people don't talk about it as much, I think, JJ, to your point, like that is like a learned thing. You have to experience it. You have to experience the winning. You then start to expect to win. You then are more comfortable. Those situations are uncomfortable, but you get comfortable being uncomfortable, in it, and kind of figuring out how to. And then once you have a team that's on a roll like that, then it gets mental for other teams. Minnesota Lynx in the WNBA for a long time, they would beat you just by showing up in a lot of ways, because they had this, like, you just knew they were going to find a way to win because they proved it, and then it kind of like weighed on their opponents, I think.
This is for both you guys. With that sort of being said, like, as winning is sort of like a learned behavior almost, do you feel like that's a reason why the young sort of best players should go to the UConn or go to Duke? Because you basically know, for the most part, like, you're going to be on a team that is going to be, whether or not you're going to win a championship, you're going to be in a position to win, and you have a much better chance of winning there than you do at another place where maybe you'd have 50 shots a game, but you'd win 7 games.
A better question, Tommy, is, does everyone actually care about winning? That's the first question you have to ask. Because I think for some people making that decision, the opportunity to win isn't at the highest, or isn't the highest priority. And when you get in the NBA and you're professional, there's a lot of real life shit that factors into every decision you make when it comes to picking a team. So I don't think it factors in as much, just for the simple fact that I think at that age you're probably concerned with playing time and playing with a buddy you met on the AAU circuit. I know I was. I mean, that was a big thing for me in deciding whether or not to go to Duke. I was being tugged at by a couple guys. Hey, come join us here. Okay, come join us there. And ultimately it was just because I was a Duke fan.
I wonder now if people go to other schools just to beat the UConns or the Dukes. There's like, I think for UConn especially, I think at some point after winning so much, it probably flipped where people wanted to go somewhere else to take them down. But no, Tommy, I agree. Like for UConn especially, like, it is definitely, I mean, there's a reason why we have talent's one of the main reasons, but there's a reason why there's so many UConn players in the WNBA, why there have been so many, why they have had crazy success. And to be honest, I'm not even talking about the MVP types. Like, yeah, the Maya Moras and the Diana Taurasi's and the Brianna Stewarts, you knew they were going to be fine. We have a ton of players in this league that are role players that have never made WNBA first team, second team, but have long, great careers. And it's because they're mentally tough. They're prepared for it. And they actually, I think a large part of it is you know how to play on a team. When you go to UConn, you have to play like with the team and be a good teammate and all that stuff. And that translates for sure.
I have a winner follow-up for you. So we've done this with a few people on the show so far. You had a relationship with Kobe. Did you have any stories with him that you sort of like thought spoke to his greatness, his character?
Yeah. So I mean, like, I knew Kobe. I wouldn't say like friends per se, but like we were cool. Spent time mostly getting to know him at the Olympics, because when we're at the Olympics, our teams are together a lot. They usually set up like a nice lounge for us wherever we're staying, like a player only thing where you can kind of just go and kick it. So my Kobe story is we were in the player lounge. There was a couple of us, and we were playing spades, and he kind of came in, and we were drinking a little wine, playing some spades, just chilling. And he came in, sat down, poured himself a glass, and he was kind of like reading a paper. So this is 2008. So they had just lost to the Celtics in the finals, like tragically, if memory serves. And so he opens up the paper, and there's like this article about it. And there's a picture of Paul Pierce. So I see it. We kind of are, and like, it's Kobe Bryant. Listen, it's 2008. We're all sitting there. Fucking Kobe Bryant sits down and pours a glass of wine. We're like, what the fuck? And then we look over, and he's tearing out the picture of Paul Pierce. So he cuts it out and he folds it up. He puts it in his pocket, and like, we're all looking at him, like what's going on? He's like, motivation. We're like, okay, cool. And then he proceeded to like chug his wine, pour another glass, chug it, poured the third, and he was like, basically like, he looks over and he's like, now I'm one ahead of you guys. We were like, okay. Like we didn't know we were racing. Like, cool. But like I think those two things like back to back, I was like, oh, that's who he is. Like that's what this is, you know? It was funny.
That is great. That is such a great story. So when I hear those stories about Kobe, and I hear them from so many people, I'm like, yo, was he really like, was some of it performance art? Like some of it was like, I've got to live up to this reputation. Like, who does that? Could he have not torn that piece of paper out in his own room and put it in his pocket? He wanted someone to know. Yeah,
right, exactly. And obviously we were all like playing, but we were like side-eyeing, like, what?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's like the music equivalent is like Prince. It seems like it's like everybody has a Prince story. Everyone has a Kobe story. It's what we did a pod with D Wade last week, and he has a million of them. But it's the same thing where it's like that guy. He's played with everybody, and there's nobody like him. There's no equivalent.
I mean, now that I'm like in 2008 in my mind, the thing that blew us all away, and it was like obviously 2008. LeBron is, he's only like 4 or 5 years into his career. So he's still pretty young. Everywhere we went. So it was opening ceremonies, and you basically you get like cattled into this one arena, and it's just like a holding area. And then you have to walk to the stadium. And so that's how it's like everybody's lined up and you're all walking in, and there's usually fans like lined up. When I say like the amount of Kobe chants, it was mind blowing. He could not, I'm sure that's what his life was like otherwise, but here now he is in a group of, it's him, it's D Wade, it's LeBron James. I mean, it's the bet, and they're only chanting Kobe's name. Every now and then you were here like, hey, I love you, LeBron. But it was like, Kobe, the entire walk from one stadium to the other. And we were all blown away. We were like, dang. Like if there was any argument at that point about popularity, got answered.
His popularity in LA is on another stratosphere. I mean, the mural, there's every 10 feet, there's another better mural of him that have sort of popped up since January, and they keep coming. Like, it's not like there were them then, like they keep putting them up. But I mean, a bunch of people said this earlier in the year, and I totally agree with them. Like, I don't think there's any comp for anybody in entertainment, definitely not in sports. Like, he was on another sort of stratosphere from everybody else in terms of popularity.
I just love the fact that he comes in the room, they're trying to relax, have a nice slow night, and he takes it upon himself to turn it into a wine chugging contest. Like, what the fuck? Like, who does that?
You're supposed to sip this.
I know. It's not really what it's for, Kobe.
How many championships did you have at that point in 2008?
In the WNBA?
Just in general.
Just one.
Oh, so I was gonna say, because maybe it's like you guys were competitive, because he looks at you and he's like.
Definitely not. But I was like, I feel like I saw the moment that I was like, oh, the Lakers are. Put money on the Lakers. Yeah. 2009. I saw them. He was already thinking about it in August, just ready to go.
They beat us that year. Let's get to the speed round before we do the draft. So we'll just do 5 or 6 questions. You can give short answers. There's no pressure to elaborate. I'll start it off with a simple yes or no question. Are you aware that when you Google your name, the 2 most frequent questions that come up are, is Larry Bird related to Sue Bird, and is Sue Bird Larry Bird's daughter?
No, unaware.
Okay.
Not surprised though. Not surprised.
Do it. Google it sometimes.
Okay.
All right. You're coaching.
I was just, not to cut you off, I know this is speed round. I was just told last night to Google dogs eating bees. Have you ever done this?
No.
No.
I'm about to do it right when we get off this thing.
Just listen. You're welcome.
Dogs eating bees. Just normal.
Dogs eating bees.
Okay.
Speed round. Go.
We're doing that. We're doing that when we get off.
I literally just blessed all of you.
Okay. Well, this will be your second correspondent appearance. The first half an hour will be spent talking about dogs eating bees.
Learn from the Wubble.
You're coaching. Who you can't pick yourself. Who is taking your last shot?
Diana.
Okay, and how about the NBA? Taurasi is a no. Feels like a no-brainer. How about the NBA?
Who's taking my last shot in the NBA? I'll go Kawhi.
I like both those answers. You briefly worked where I don't know if are you still working for the Nuggets?
No.
Okay, so you worked for the Nuggets front office for a little bit. What do you think we're going to see first? A woman head coach or a woman GM in the NBA? In the NBA?
Yeah. Head coach.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's happening soon.
Yeah.
You win the next 3 championships, but you have to go on vacation with the Trump sons. Do you do it?
Oh, jeez.
I've won enough. All
right, last one. 5 best WNBA players of all time.
Diana Taurasi, Lauren Jackson, Lisa Leslie, Cheryl Swoops, Mymore.
I asked Tina Charles that in like May or June, early June. I saw her at a gym in Brooklyn.
What'd she
We
say?
were training. She said, I think the four of them were on there, except for Lisa was not on there. No, Lisa was the 5th because she was like stuck on 4, and then she was like Lisa. So I think there was the exact same list.
Okay.
Yeah. I said, what about Sue Bird? What about Sue? All right, let's get to the draft. For clarity's sake, we're doing New York City apartments or homes of TV or movie characters that are unrealistic based on that character's profession. That's essentially what the draft is, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This was JJ's
I'm ready.
idea.
Okay. What? Okay.
Yeah.
I just did movies, or I just have movies, but I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Sue, you start us off. Tommy, I went middle last time, so I'll get third this time.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to start with Big Daddy. He didn't have a job.
Great call. I didn't have that one. Great fucking call.
He had a settlement, but I'm like, that apartment was cool.
That apartment was huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
It had like that loft situation.
Yes. Great call.
Wasn't he living in the house or the apartment while it was the whole will and the state were going through probate? Like it was sort of up in the air. I feel like I don't even know how he made it into the apartment in the first place.
Yeah.
I know he didn't
All
have
right, I'm up. I'm taking this off the board because I feel like this is the obvious one. Sex and the City.
Yeah.
There's no way they're paying for any of that shit as the columnist or whatever. No chance.
So I looked this up actually. So apparently she was on the Upper East Side or Upper West Side?
I thought she was.
It's like a 1-bedroom.
She was in the Village. I could be wrong.
No, she was Upper East Side or Upper West Side. Anyways, it was today's money. It was it would be like $3,000 a month as a writer, but somehow she was rent controlled at like $700 a month, which even as like a writer who had one columnist living that lifestyle,
Tough.
seems unrealistic.
Yeah.
I think it's a good choice, Tommy. All right, I'm gonna take another obvious one off the board. I'm gonna go with Monica Geller on Friends.
Yeah.
Her spacious apartment with all of that charm and details in the West Village for a sous chef living in New York City. Not rolling. Second choice for me. Did you guys ever watch Gossip Girl?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So
I said that too energetically, but yeah. I did.
yes. No, I
don't think it holds up.
I watched every season.
I don't think it holds up.
Oh no, I rewatched it during quarantine. It definitely does. It's so good, bro.
I might try it again. Wait. So did you watch Outer Banks on
No.
Netflix? Okay, that's a good one. It's only on one season. It's new. You're gonna roll through it.
Okay.
So anyways, Rufus Humphrey, who's Dan and Jenny's dad on Gossip Girl,
Oh yeah.
they live in Dumbo. The outer shots are actually on Washington Street. I know the building. They have like a 3-bedroom apartment in Dumbo, like crazy loft space with 15-foot ceilings and this huge open kitchen. And he works at an art gallery. Not possible. All right.
Cool. All right, my second one, a little bit of a curveball, but I want to go I want to go. I'm trying to pick popular new shows that are relevant to our younger audience. Have you guys seen You on Netflix?
Oh, yes.
So I don't think his apartment. He works at a bookstore. I don't think his apartment is realistic based off of the bookstore. And then added to that, he has a fucking dungeon in wherever that is, and he like that whole element to it adds to this is my second pick. So Joe from You is number 2.
You're picking the main character.
I'm picking
you're
Joe.
Not picking...
I'm picking Penn Badgley.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, you're doing new shows. My list is all old, so this works out. Nice balance. I'm gonna go with the movie Big. He just got that job. You don't just like buy that apartment right away. Like, how much was he actually making? That's my take on it. I was always like, this apartment's huge, and you just got that job.
Sue's gonna kill us with this list.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. His apartment was in Soho, right? I think the apartment he bought. I think it was in Soho, and he was a toy tester. Wasn't that was his job as a toy tester?
Yeah, but he like just got it. And he had zero bank prior to that because he was actually 8. Like,
all right, so you got another one. You're third. We're snaking it.
Okay. So this one's kind of all right. This one's not. It's not on a limb by any means, but I was very confused by this movie because honestly, it like almost put me into a seizure with like just like how all over the place it was. But Uncut Gems. I was like, is this man rich? Is he poor? What is going on? And his apartment, well, he had like 8 of them, it felt like. He had like a house on Long Island, then he's got the, where his girls
Murray Hill. He's got the Murray Hill nice apartment. And you're like, this guy's... I guess that was part of the thing with the movie is he spent his money on dumb shit, but still, he had two very nice residences for someone that was completely broke.
Yeah, who was like literally racing around the city, driving to Philadelphia. I was like, what?
That's a good one.
Like possible.
All right, my third is Girls, the show. I thought they were another one. They couldn't have been making more than like 35, 40K a year. I know that maybe their parents paid for some of it, but there was a disconnect. Those apartments are in Brooklyn are probably like, I don't know, $3,500 a month or something like that. There's no way their salary was holding those apartments up.
No. Well, I don't think she had a job either.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pick Dylan Harper from the movie Friends with Benefits. That's Justin Timberlake's character. Yeah, he had a sick apartment.
He had a great apartment.
And he was the art director at GQ. I failed to look up what the salary of an art director at a GQ would be, but that was like a $10 million apartment that he was in. That apartment was insane. Second one for me is from the show You as well. So Beck's
the girlfriend's apartment.
First floor walk up in the West Village. She's a poetry student and a part-time fitness instructor. There's no way she can afford that, and she claims to be broke. She's not getting any money from home either. So Beck from You.
You clearly as a theme of. All right, my fourth. I forget the character's name, but Anne Hathaway in Devil Wears Prada.
Devil Wears Prada, yeah, that's a good one. Okay, this next one is, I'll say it anyways. Boomerang. He had a good job though, but I was just like his apartment or his house, I don't even know what it was sick.
I'm unfamiliar with that. Is that a movie?
Good movie.
Yeah.
You should watch it this week.
Oh, you gotta watch it.
Yeah, okay. Eddie Murphy, Halle Berry.
He did have a good job, so I guess it's not.
No, I think that counts. I think that counts. He had a good job, but that was probably like a $8 million apartment or something like that. It was like it didn't seem to be commiserate. All right, you got one more.
I go again?
You're closing it out.
Here's my last one. So for my last one, I'm gonna go Ghost. Apartment was sick.
I've never seen Ghost.
I like that.
Oh, really?
Does it hold up?
You should definitely watch it. Yeah, you should definitely watch it.
I have all these really well-known movies that are just gaps in my life. This is what I've been spending my entire quarantine doing, is catching up on all this shit. So I'll watch Ghost tonight.
It's good. Yeah. Right. But I just felt like the apartment had crazy high ceilings, super cool apartment. And I mean, yeah, he had a job too, but I'm like, what? It didn't seem like it lined up.
Didn't fit.
All right. I'm closing it. So I just watched this the other night. Have you guys ever seen King of New York with Christopher Walken?
No.
Yes.
It's really good. It's just like it was made in 1990. It's like a gangster movie. He's a drug dealer that sort of takes power in New York when he gets out of jail. I get that he's a drug dealer, successful, has money, He has the entire top floor of the Plaza Hotel in 1990. And he basically walks right out of prison into the top floor of the Plaza with it wasn't like he built up his business and then moved in there after the fact. And so, like, I don't know. It must have been a very successful enterprise for him to be able to afford that, because that was like peak Plaza. So that's
It's actually a great movie.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. I'm going to close it out with Don Draper. I know he ended up being a very successful ad man, but coming off of his divorce to Betty, he moves into this insane Manhattan apartment with like a sunken living room. And at the time, the firm was like going through this huge transition and they were low on cash. So I don't know where he got the money from. I'm questioning his source of funds for the down payment.
I feel like all of these movies makes me realize I need to go into advertising. I feel like that's what all of these jobs were.
Late end career shift.
Boomerang was that, like marketing and ad. That's
toy testing. I know I texted you guys this last time we had Sue on the show with Megan. We ranked cereal, and I've withdrawn consideration of Cracklin' Oat Bran as a top 5 cereal. I ordered 20 boxes during quarantine, and I realized it's not good.
So you literally just ate it too much, and you realized it sucks.
I think after like 2 boxes, I had cuts on the roof of my mouth, and I realized I can't wait 20 minutes for a cereal to soften up. It's just not possible.
I'm glad you came to your senses.
I'm out on that. All right, Sue, we will talk to you very soon. Thank you for the time, and good luck
Sue.
in the Wubble.
Kill it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.